but we will try and rectify that as best as possible. So fighting in built-up areas. It's also going to be quite key for this weekend's operation because we are going to be doing that as well. So I know it's quite small. I'm going to take our time with the slides because there is a bit of bump with this. We're going to do a bit of a theory phase. Then we're going to do some urban patrolling, and then we're going to go into basically what the nitty-gritty of FIBUA, and that is breaching rooms, clearing compounds, and we've got a perfect area for it because we're in a designed area and town for that. So, key things relating to FIBUA or close quarters battle, communication is essential. So we're lucky this weekend. I'm going to try and put it into perspective for the weekend if you are attending. If not, why not? So radio or voice comms are going to be essential to prevent blue on blue. So if you are involved in anything that is breaching a room, clearing a compound, you need to be vocal about it. You can't be quiet. You've got to be saying, I'm moving to this corner of the room or I'm moving down the hallway, because if you get shot, you go down and you haven't been communicating, there's a high chance that you're going to get left behind. All right. And this gets pushed through in basic training. If you keep talking, keep not talking bullshit, but if you keep saying, I'm going to this position, keep people aware, your situational awareness goes up. In urban combat, situational awareness is king. And if you lose that, then you are already on a back foot if you are going to be taking part in anything like that. You need to work as a minimum of a buddy team, so 2 people. So a good fire team leader or section commander will pair you off, and that is mainly for if one of you goes down, hopefully another person is there to A, call it up on the radio and say, hey, Adams is down, or at least try and rescue you from that situation. If 2 of you go down, then there's clearly something different that, or a bit bigger deal with than what we normally deal with. Winning the firefight. In urban combat, winning the firefight takes priority over dealing with casualties. So if you're in a compound or in a building and there is an enemy in front of you, the last thing you need to be doing is patching up your mate or trying to extend his head with cat. You need to end that threat. You need to win that firefight, okay? No matter what the cost, all right? So if it takes you an extra minute to go and save your mate, but you've dealt with the threat, then that's great. You've dealt with the threat. It means people could come and help. You can start with the first aid. You start dealing with the injuries yourself, then there's a chance he comes back round the corner and good night Vienna. Respecting the rules of engagement. Now, at this weekend, the rules of engagement are quite a bit lax. However, in most combat close quarters and FIBUA situations, there is a specific rule of engagement, i.e. no grenades being used, etc., etc. You need to respect that, all right? There will come times where that rules of engagement will change on the fly, and that will be communicated to you, but don't be throwing grenades unless you are authorized to do so. Also be aware of the rules of engagement that there may come points that if you are only allowed to engage if you are fired upon, so weapons yellow, it is unlikely that you will be in that situation if you are breaching a building, because breaching a building is a very aggressive action. But if in doubt, always double check. Positioning. So because we're in a nice little training exercise, we can go over things several times. But positioning is king in close quarters battle in FIBUA. If you're out of position, there is a chance that you can get shot from a window, shot from an opening, little things like that. So if you are struggling with things, shout out. You know, if you don't understand why we do something, then, you know, shout up. We're not going to here to bite your head off. If we have to... Oh, bear with me a sec.
Yeah. And it was never seen again.
He has his inner demons. Ah, don't worry, we have the other guy. Oh. Very well. There we go. We still have the other trainer.
I'm going to let him carry on because he was on a roll. There we are.
I'm back.
Oh,
that's fine. You could have carried on. I got food. So yeah, if in doubt with positioning, we can go over it several times. Don't Don't worry about it. We can take as long as we need. All right, that's the be all and end all here. I'm not here to rush you. You know, well, it's you're being taught today, so it's your lesson. So if you need to go over things again, that's great. You know, if it takes 10 attempts to learn something, then I'd rather you get it right than not, if you get me. Everyone happy with that?
Question.
Yes.
In many situations on the public server, I've seen in the past that a two-man body team tries to enter a building, and then the first man in the door gets shot in the doorway.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we often have a second casualty because what I assume is the second person tries to, as you say, win the firefight, but then just gets into the same ambush position of the first casualty. To me, that is a clear situation where you would not attempt to win the firefight, but instead withdraw. Can you expand on what?
Yeah. So
what exactly should be the deciding factor?
So for me, my personal deciding factor is if I am in a hallway, for example, and there is no way out, i.e. you cannot get out of that situation without winning the firefight, then you need to win the firefight. In that situation you just said, somebody's breached the door, number one's breached the door, and you've got a way out, i.e. and by way out I mean cover that you can retreat to, then yeah, feel free. Situation dependent, you think it's safer for me to withdraw, drag him out the way, go from there. But you've always got to be on your guard that in urban combat, enemies will chase you, or the AI might chase you. It depends how they work. But in reality, it's never a static firefight. So let's err on the side of, you know, be cautious if you are treating people. But yeah, definitely situational dependent. Let's, for example, say if we look over to our right or see one of the buildings with the doorway, number one man gets shot going in the door, then yeah, drag him out, make sure we're not sorting it, and then we'll reevaluate how we go in. Do it that way. But yeah, no, good question. Any more for any more? No? All right. It's been a while since I've done this, so I can't remember exactly what the next slide is. Aha! Movement. So, this is a nice, lovely closed door. As you can see, they're approaching. We're going to assume that there are approaching buildings with no windows at the moment. So this is the ideal scenario. So you're approaching the door, and number one man's got his gun pointing towards the door, and the second man, he is going to be he's going to be in charge of basically throwing things into that room. All right. So number one's the man with the gun. Number two's to the further to the right. Steps up to the door, and he assesses how the door will open. He'll not expose himself initially to either an open or closed door, and this is where communication comes key. And he forms number two from where they are planning to breach the room. So if at this point he'll be saying, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to go left. All right. We always work on a diagonal with the number one. So number one always takes the least path of entry. So he's going to move straight in and go left. Number two will do the opposite of him. All right. So if there is no door, then we'll do a bit of a skipperoonie, but let's pretend there is a door. But now let's pretend that a grenade has to be posted into that room. So the rules of engagement may change. I just need to see if this is a second picture on this. Yeah, there we go. So depending on the rules of engagement, this will either be a hand grenade or a stun grenade. I do like using stun grenades recently. Number one is in charge of opening the door. Number two is going to swing by and without exposing himself too bad, so using as minimal movement as possible to throw a grenade, or let's just pretend it's a grenade for now, deep into the room. And then he returns to his original position, bringing his main weapon up and ready for the bang. All right? Boom. Number one enters the room, deals with the threats immediately in his front and moves to the left. All right, and he ends up on the left-hand wall. You always end up tight to the wall. just in case there's any threats that are tight up against it. The last thing you want to do is have somebody shoot you from behind. Number 2 is going to do the reverse. So for it, he's also going to check the front area. The only reason for that is if number 1 has shot somebody, that person may pop back up. So when you enter the door, clears the area immediately in front of him, looks right, and away we go. You then take up dominating positions inside the room. That is not how we do it. Boom. And by dominating positions in this room, we mean the corners. So you're tight in the corner and you're looking towards the center. We're just pretending that this is a nice square room, but in reality, we all know that rooms are different shapes, different sizes. So if you get in the corner, you might not be looking into the center. You might be looking to another doorway, another window, that kind of thing. At that point, you'll take a moment to just check, assess, make sure that you're all okay, and then continue on with your clearing. Everyone happy with that? So that's from a stacked position. So we'll go back through the slides. Yeah? 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 Exactly. So with that, the number one will always look and assess how the door will open. Now, in reality, you'd be able to tell off the hinges if it's going to open in or out. Armor's funny in the way that you could open the door and go completely opposite to how you think it's going to go. So, again, that's going to be a mild issue. You can use I can never remember the ace key binding, but you can
Control
always use
spacebar scroll wheel.
Yeah, and you could use that to test the door. So you could move it open slightly, so that way you know which way it's going to open. If it's opening, say for example, it's opening towards them, then what we do is we move around. So number 1 would stay in his position, number 2 would go to the opposite side, and then vice versa. So you just reverse the position. Hope that answered that one. So starts from the position, bang goes in, breach, dominate the room. All right, so that's from a nice stack position. What happens if we have to go from opposites? So again, this is an option that can be done for any of us. So number 1, the guy on the right, he's going to step up and do the same again. He's going to assess the situation and have a look. Now, if this is an open door, i.e. there is no door, then this would be called pieing the door. So somebody is going round and he's constantly looking inside the room and constantly looking as he's moving from right to left or left to right. If anything pops up, he's shooting it. All right. So if that's you, anything pops up, you don't have to wait to enter the room. If you can dominate and win the firefight from outside the room, great. If not, then you're going to have to breach it and go from there. We do the same procedure as before with the grenades. However, number 2 is just a little bit easier throwing the grenade in. He's going to push up to the side. And it's nice and easy for him. And this is slightly different because number 1 and number 2, I don't like how on this they actually switch which numbers people are. It pissed me off when I did this. So let's pretend number 1's still on the right-hand side. You cross which way you go, but communicate who is going to move in first. The last thing you want to do is both run at the door and realize you can't get in. Right. So again, managing the situation and being ready to be like, okay, I'm going to go first, you follow me in. Right. That's from that's from what we call a split position in that one. Everyone happy with that? Okay. And as you can see, they're entering the room. Bish, bash, bosh.
Can I look at that again?
Yeah, yeah. Know what I mean? So
Numbers are a bit off on these.
Yeah, the number's a bit off on this one, so these are just showing you stages. This could also show how you do a split position with more than 2 people. As you can see, odds are going to the right, evens are going to the left. And the 2, like your lower numbers, so 4 and 3, they're staring nearer the door. So you've got that there for you. Bear with me a second. Just trying to find the next little slideroni. because I've got it on my notes, and my notes are massive. What number is it? 186. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Bear with me a minute. As I need to find the picture that shows us going down a hallway. Okay. There we go. Whoop. Approaching a hallway with a nice little turn. So with this, you'll be staggered. So you're going to be on opposite sides to each other. So one on the left, two on the right, or in this instance, one on the right, two on the left. And number one, you're both tight to the wall. And as you're approaching the corner, the first word of command is going to be corner and a direction. So you could go corner right. I've heard people say hallway right. Whatever works for you, as long as you're describing what's going ahead. That's the most important thing. So at that point, you switch on. Number two is looking into the corner and beyond it. However, notice there is a bit of a dead space that can't be seen. So you've got to be careful with that. As you get closer and closer to the position, number one, the one closest to the wall, is going to take a kneeling position, while number two is going to continue as we keep going. This is where it's going to be a bit more communication. So number one is going to say he's ready. Number two is going to dictate the move. So number two is going to say move. And at that point, number one takes the corner. Number two takes the far side, and you're both clearing the position ahead of you. All right. That is where communication comes key. And try not, in close combat situations, if you're working as a pair, you're going to be using voice chat. Try not to use your radios, because that'll dominate the radio if somebody needs to get something really important ahead of you. Right. Everyone happy with a corner? Going to go to the next one, which is a T-shape. See these every now and again. So both shooters, so both men, approaching T-shape intersection, tying individual sectors opposite each other, bearing in mind you're not aiming at your mate. And you're both going to move to dominant positions without entering this intersection. So the final position where they are now, you can notice there are little bits of dead space that they can't both see. So this is where your communication is going to come in handy again, because you need to be ready to move into that position at the same time. Okay. Now, this next picture is going to explain it a little bit easier. We call it the button hook maneuver. So that's literally just a 180 as you bring yourself around the corner. So it's going to be ready and then move, and then you dominate the area. That is the dead space. So guy on the right is going to turn right, guy on the left is going to turn left. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
From the drawing, it also looks like they are tasked with. They need to address the dead space first thing and not last in the.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it looks wrong. I think personally, I don't agree with how they've done it. But if you can imagine this actually being a hallway, you've looked at that end of the hallway probably for a little bit. So if we go back a little bit, oh, that's a fucking stairwell. Oh no, I've got that. You've already approached that position, so you should already be able to see what's ahead of you. So hopefully ahead of you, you dealt with what's there. As you get closer, dead space gets smaller. So hopefully, if there is anybody in the middle area, you might have already dealt with that. But the worrying bit for you is the bit you can't see. So in that instance, that little bit, you might not be able to see my point, but you can see that little bit there. That's the worrying bit, because you've not seen that. You don't know what's there. So I'd be more concerned of the bit I don't know.
Exactly.
Hopefully, yeah. So then make your turn and go from there. But any more questions? Go on the next one. Stairs. And for reference, I got this from a US Marine mount tutorial. So these pictures are from them. So clearing a stairwell as a pair. Notice a lot of these are in pairs because it's nice and easy. So shooter number 1 is going to lead upstairs 1 step ahead of the number 2. Upon reaching the point just before he can be engaged from above, number 1's going to turn around. We do this quite a bit. If you've seen people do it, you're looking to see what's behind you. Oh, and that's the last slide on that, so it's a bit more thing. Shooter number 2 is going to be following him upstairs, looking to the front, and you're going to keep doing that all the way up to the stairs, and it's rinse repeat. So generally we're only going up 1 flight of stairs, and if there is nothing behind you, i.e. it's a brick wall and there's nothing thingy, number 1's just going to turn back, facing to the front and crack on. But if there is something there, then we're ready to deal with it. Right? All of the procedures that we've gone through on the pictures are all going to be conducted at a walking's pace. Anyone want to hazard a guess at the reason why? No? Yeah, easy to coordinate, easy to control. More importantly, it's easier for you to take the shot. You can imagine, you've probably all done it on the server. You've run for a bit and you have to instantly react. You've got to stop, take a minute and then shoot. Or take a moment, should I say. But if you're walking and you've got your gun up, it's literally just a click. Game, set, match. Right? If any of you have head trackers, i.e. track IR or the eye movement, that kind of thing, CQB is where it probably comes into its own, I would say. Right. There are a few more. Yeah, go for it. It's whatever you prefer, I would always say. Personally, for me, I always go with my sight up, but that's personal preference. I think I can react quicker with my gun in that position rather than having to, I know it sounds bad, but having to do 1 right click to bring the weapon up to aim. That's just me personally. Some of you may prefer just to walk along and hip fire, and that's entirely down to yourself. But if you think that you can react quick enough and right click and shoot somebody, if you practice what works best, this is why we're here today. We're going to put some targets up so you can try both ones. Whatever works for you. Oh, yes. If you are able to, urban terrain, fully automatic. Okay. A few more things that aren't on slides. If we are moving across windows, duck underneath them. Obvious reason, if somebody's in a window, they're going to shoot you. Yeah. And if for whatever reason in urban terrain you need to cross a wall, if it's low enough to jump over, then great. But I know we don't use enhanced movement, but there is a climb thing in Ace. I think it's at Control Y.
Control V.
Is it Control V? Yeah, there you go. If you need to use that, be very cautious. I definitely wouldn't recommend using it, but if needs must, just be aware that you may be going over alone with no cover. All right.
Any reason not to use enhanced movement?
I think it breaks the server sometimes.
Fair enough.
Or it can break missions sometimes. If used incorrectly, i.e. people entering buildings from away, people haven't been expecting. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to keep this nice and simple. We're going to do some breaching of compounds,